There is a box sitting on a shelf in every Walmart, every Home Depot, every grocery store in America right now. It costs $1.47. It has been sitting on that shelf since 1891, and inside that box is the most effective ant killer ever documented. One that creates zero chemical resistance, requires zero professional application, costs nothing to maintain after the first use, and that the $38 billion pest control industry has spent 60 years making sure you would never think to use for its designed purpose. The box is 20 Mule Team Borax. This video is about what is in it, and why it works when every commercial spray eventually fails, and why the pest control industry quietly removed it from every household treatment guide in America in 1962. But first, I want to give you the number that should make every person who has ever signed a pest control contract feel something shift. The average American household spends $612 per year on pest control. For households with quarterly professional treatment contracts, which the industry markets as the only effective approach to ant management, the annual cost runs $600 to $900. Over 30 years, that is $18,000 to $27,000, paid to a service that sprays a chemical that the target pest develops resistance to within 3 to 5 generations and requires continued payment indefinitely because the treatment eventually stops working and must be replaced with a stronger formulation. The Amish family in Holmes County has not signed a pest control contract in the history of their occupancy of that property. They have not had a meaningful ant problem in 40 years. Their total annual pest management expenditure for the ant protocol specifically, approximately $1.47 in borax, which produces enough bait material to treat the entire property perimeter for 2 full years from a single box. I want to tell you why this works before I tell you how to use it, because understanding why it works is the thing that makes you never go back to the spray. Commercial ant sprays, the pyrethroids and organophosphates marketed since the 1960s, work through contact toxicity. The chemical kills the ants it touches. The ants that are not touched continue living. The colony continues operating. The queen continues laying eggs. The spray creates selection pressure that, over 3 to 5 generations spanning 6 months, eliminates the most sensitive individuals from the colony's gene pool and concentrates the more resistant individuals. The colony surviving 6 months of exposure is, by natural selection, more resistant to pyrethroid than the colony from 6 months ago. This is why pest control contracts require renewal. Not because the pest is getting worse, because the treatment is making the pest harder to kill with the same treatment. Borax does not work through contact toxicity. It works through delayed metabolic disruption. An ant that picks up borax bait does not die immediately. It carries the bait back to the colony. It deposits it in the food stores and shares it with other workers and with the queen through the trophallaxis behavior. This is the mouth-to-mouth food sharing that ants use to distribute food across the colony. The borax disrupts the ant's ability to metabolize food at the cellular level. Specifically, it interferes with the enzyme systems that convert glucose to ATP. The disruption is slow enough that the ant has time to return to the colony and share the material widely before dying. Within 48 to 72 hours, the disruption has spread through the colony's food distribution network to the workers, the brood, and the queen. The queen dies. Without a laying queen, the colony cannot replace its workers. The colony collapses within 1 to 2 weeks from the initial bait uptake. Because the mechanism is metabolic rather than chemical toxicity, ants cannot develop resistance to it. There is no selection pressure that makes ants better at metabolizing borax. The disruption targets fundamental cellular processes that are conserved across all ant species. In 60 years of documented borax use for ant control, not a single resistant ant population has been identified anywhere in the world. Not one. The commercial pyrethroid products in the same 60 years have generated thousands of documented resistance cases. Now I want to tell you why this was removed from household treatment guides in 1962. Because the removal was not accidental, and it was not based on any finding that the product was ineffective or unsafe. In 1962, the synthetic pyrethroid insecticide market was entering its period of rapid commercial expansion. Major chemical manufacturers had invested heavily in pyrethroid development and were positioning their products to replace DDT-based insecticides. The National Pest Management Association was funded primarily by the chemical manufacturers whose products the guidelines recommended. The guidelines, published in 1962, systematically replaced borax-based treatments with pyrethroid recommendations across every major pest category. Borax was a commodity mineral that could not be patented, could not generate premium pricing, and created no repeat purchase dependency. The colony died. The problem was solved. The customer did not need to call again. The pyrethroid that replaced it created resistance. The resistance required retreatment. The retreatment required a stronger formulation or a different chemistry. The cycle generated continuous revenue. The borax did not generate continuous revenue. In a guidelines document funded by chemical manufacturers, the borax disappeared. Now let me tell you exactly how to use it. Because the ratio matters more than most sources describe, and getting the ratio wrong is the primary reason people try this and report that it did not work. The bait formula: 2 tablespoons of 20 Mule Team Borax, 1 tablespoon of white granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of warm water. Mix until the borax and sugar are fully dissolved. The solution should be clear with a slight viscosity from the dissolved borax. This produces a liquid bait that ants will actively collect and carry back to the colony. The ratio is critical. Too much borax relative to sugar, and the ants detect the bait as toxic and avoid it. Ants have chemoreceptors sensitive enough to detect borax concentrations above approximately 1% by weight in a food source. At concentrations above this threshold, they will circle the bait, sample it briefly, and leave without collecting it. The 1-to-2 ratio produces a concentration of approximately 0.8% borax by weight, which is below the detection threshold. This specific ratio has been refined through decades of use by Amish households across Lancaster County and represents generations of observation. Too little borax and the material does not kill the queen before the colony's immune response isolates the affected individuals. The minimum effective concentration is 0.5%. Below this, workers may be affected, but the queen survives, and the colony recovers. The placement: soak cotton balls in the bait solution and place them in shallow bottle caps along the ant trails you have observed. The cotton ball holds the liquid bait and allows ants to feed without drowning. Place bait stations at every point of activity, at the foundation perimeter of the house, and at the base of fruit trees. Do not place bait stations in direct sunlight. The heat evaporates the liquid bait quickly and concentrates the borax above the detection threshold. Shaded placement under the foundation lip, beneath garden stepping stones, or inside shallow containers maintains the bait in optimal condition for 5 to 7 days. Do not spray or apply any other pesticide in the same area. Contact pesticides kill the foraging workers before they can carry the bait back. The bait works because the foragers survive long enough to return. Killing the foragers at the bait station defeats the mechanism. Refresh the bait stations every 5 to 7 days. After the first 2 weeks, ant activity should decrease significantly as the colony population declines. By the end of the 3rd week, bait station activity typically stops. This indicates the colony has collapsed. Maintain stations for an additional 2 weeks. For carpenter ants, mix the borax with peanut butter rather than sugar. 2 parts peanut butter to 1 part borax, mixed thoroughly. Place this paste in small quantities inside carpenter ant entry points, near wood-to-ground contact areas, and at the base of wooden structures. Fire ants require a dry, granular bait. Mix borax with cornmeal at a ratio of 1 part borax to 4 parts cornmeal. Sprinkle this mixture around the fire ant mound perimeter, 12 to 18 inches away, not directly on the mound, which disrupts the colony. Amish farms in Holmes County report complete fire ant control across their property, without any chemical treatment using this protocol. The cockroach application. The same liquid bait formula used for ants is effective against cockroaches with one modification. Add 1 teaspoon of boric acid, available at most pharmacies as an eye wash component. to the standard borax bait solution. Place bait stations inside cabinet corners, beneath appliances, under the sink, and along the baseboard in any room with observed cockroach activity. The mechanism is identical to the ant protocol, but cockroaches are more sensitive to borax concentration, and the slightly modified formula produces better uptake. German cockroach colonies, the species responsible for the majority of indoor cockroach infestations in American homes, typically collapse within 3 to 4 weeks of consistent bait station exposure. The silverfish and carpet beetle edition. These species respond to a dry borax application rather than a liquid bait. Sprinkle a thin layer of pure borax along the baseboards in any room with silverfish or carpet beetle activity. The powder adheres to the insect's waxy cuticle and is ingested during grooming. Apply lightly enough that the powder is not visible as a white line. A barely visible dusting is sufficient and will not be detected or avoided by the insects. Refresh the application every 6 months. I want to close with the total economic picture because the 1.47 box deserves calculation. 1 box of 20 Mule Team Borax, 147, yields enough bait material for 2 years of whole property ant treatment using the formula I described. 2 years of professional quarterly pest control treatment for the same property, $200 to $1,800. The borax bait produces results the professional treatment cannot. Permanent colony collapse, rather than temporary population suppression. The professional treatment must continue indefinitely because it suppresses without eliminating. The borax bait, applied correctly, eliminates the colony. The elimination is not permanent in the sense that new colonies from neighboring territories will eventually establish foraging routes to your property. But the borax protocol, maintained at the foundation perimeter with refreshed bait stations as needed, prevents establishment before it becomes an infestation. 1 box per year, maintained consistently. 1.47 per year. Professional treatment contract for the same coverage, $600 to $900 per year. Over 30 years, 17 to 956 hours to 26 at 956 hours in savings, from a compound that has been on the store shelf since 1891. And that the pest control industry has spent 60 years making sure you thought of only as a laundry booster. The Amish family in Holmes County knows what the box is for. They have always known. The label changed, the knowledge did not. Drop in the comments what pest situation you have been managing, how long, how much spent, and whether you have ever seen a box of 20 Mule Team Borax on the laundry aisle and known it was effective. It still is. The pest control aisle is 3 times longer than it was in 1962. The borax box has not moved.